I'm going to go ahead and kick things off. Our speaker today is Dr. Johnnie-Margaret McConnell. She is the Director of Transfer Student Success at the University of Oklahoma. She has spent 23 years in higher education and divided those years, about 10 years in academics, 10 years in residential life, but has basically a background in advising. She started this role July 1st, and I'm going to just turn it right over.
How is this volume? Is that it? Okay, good. Because I can talk rather loud, so if you're like, bring it down, please just let me know. So before I begin talking you through championing our transfer students, I want you to know a couple of things. I'm going to focus primarily on the Norman campus. As we know, we have plenty of students by the data we just saw that transfer in to the Health Science Center, right? A lot of them from your campuses. And then the other thing I want you to know is I'm not going to talk a lot about policy and procedure. I'm going to focus mostly on the onboarding. So if student affairs in general is your background, you're at home with me this morning, right? If you are definitely doing more of the policy and procedure, I'm not offended if you're like, let me check out who's talking right now, right? And enjoy those. So before I go any further, what I want to do is pause and recognize a couple other OU colleagues that are in the room, because there has been a lot of work done for transfer students in individual offices across our campus for years. For years. What the university decided when they created this position of Director for Transfer Student Success is that they were going to try to help and make these efforts more coordinated, see where the gaps were, what do we need to provide you in the way of everything from resources to staffing. So that's the reason that I hold this role. So I'm going to start with one of my colleagues from my first space in work, which is John Minks over here. He is with University College, and then now he has moved over to, remind me of our full name for the college.
Newborn College of Earth and Energy.
Newborn College of Earth and Energy, because you know everything has to be named, right? So I know the old ones, but the new ones I'm still a little bit behind on. I was trying to see if there was anybody else. I have an old student leader in here who OSU grabbed, Nick Holmes. I see you right over there. But I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that you're in the work, and a couple other folks that are sitting at that table as well. I think all of our other colleagues have dispersed to, Jennifer. Jennifer is also one of our advisors over in Arts and Sciences. You are also sitting on our PACA Advising Transfer Committee. Would you talk just a little bit about that quickly? So this is our advising at large across campus.
Hello, I'm Jennifer DuBois. So we have sort of a campus-wide advising community, and I am on the executive council for that. And within that group, we have several different communities dedicated to different areas, and I am the liaison from the council for the transfer student community. And last year I was the chair of that community, but the goal basically is just for us to come together, advisors across campus, share the experiences that we've seen, and try to come up together with ways to help students. And now we are working with the wonderful Dr. Johnnie-Margaret McConnell to try to bring that together now that she has this wonderful new role.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So when I first started in July, Jennifer and I met with another one of our colleagues, and they handed me 3 pages of everything that needs to be done for transfer students. It was single-spaced, if you're wondering, right? So hopefully we have done a few of those things and are starting to initiate a few more. But you may have already read through the list, even though I know everything seems to be a little tinier than we anticipated for you today. So let me just highlight a few things. So in our admissions office, about 3 years ago, they actually dedicated a team to transfer students. So those 6 staff members are both recruiters and admissions officers. Like we know on most of our campuses, they have either an assigned school and or region that they are working with. So if you're thinking to yourself, I have never seen this person from OU, will you please email me? And I will make sure you know who that assigned admissions officer is. So now we have essentially a parallel team to our direct from high school admissions. So we're very excited about that. The other thing that we have done within advising is for years we had designated transfer days. Some of you are like, yes, I would make sure my students knew in November that in March there are 3 days, get signed up earlier. I see some heads shaking. We did that for years. Now we've essentially lifted it being limited to 3 days to folks like Jennifer and John are putting into their weekly schedule appointments for transfer students once admitted. So once they are admitted, have all that login information, and are on the third or fourth email that they have no idea what OU just sent them, but we're working on that side too, okay? But they can log into another system, because we gotta have multiple, for advising, but they can make that appointment the next week if something is open. So that's the great thing there in the sense of lifting the barriers. So in that appointment, it can also, some of the good things that have come out of COVID, be by Zoom, right? So students, again, don't have that, well, when am I gonna make that 3.5-hour drive? No, they can just get on Zoom and have that appointment. So next up is our new student orientation. Evan is actually here today. So many of us have that, August time where we bring in all of our new students. This year, we will able to bring back a transfer focus. So the quick history here at OU is we used to do orientation throughout the summer. Well, when we were looking at equity best practices, we decided that asking a student to fly in June, let's say, and turn around in August was not very considerate, right? And was not thinking of finances for different students. So now, we want you to come to school just a little bit earlier, all right? So we do recognize that that still hits the pocketbook in the way of not being able to work. We do have those discussions. But when it comes to orientation, now we have a track where if you're a transfer student, you can say, I want to go to those sessions. As one of our transfer student advisory board students reminded me, I'm an in-betweener. I don't fit in with the first year students and all the things they want to do. I've already done all that, right? I want that transfer focus. I want to know about internships. I want to know if I'm in the right major. And I want to know, did I get all my books, right? And is that financial aid all taken care of? So we started that up again this year. Then within student life, anybody resurrecting some things on your campus right now post-COVID? Probably in the area of student organizations. It's like they just, not only in employment jobs, they just left us. Like, where did you go, right? Come out of the holes. So we are in the process of resurrecting our transfer leadership class. We have a group that's involved in that, about 20 students. They do receive a scholarship for that. And then the other group, we're doing a mixer tonight, Happy National Transfer Week, right? For our OATS group, which is a student-led organization. So Oklahoma Association of Transfer Students. And then the last thing that we have been doing on the recruitment front, this was just introduced, is monthly on a Friday, just so happens to be the second Friday of November, if I have it in my head right, it's an all transfer day. So on that Friday, transfer students come, the programming for those 5 hours is built around the questions and the needs that they have. So once a month, we are dedicating a Friday through recruitment for any transfer student. All of that's available on websites. I can give you all those links. So that's great. You've been doing all these things. What else are you going to tell us this morning? Well, in our strategic plan that I have linked you to, the specific strategies, but most importantly, the tactics, right? We will formalize relationships with other in-state institution selected programs. Get ready for my email in your email box, because one of my biggest projects is going to be pathways, right? Are we coordinating our faculty together so that when you are seeing a student at your institution, especially 2-year, you can say to them, let's use this pathway. Here's what we're going to take at our institution. Here's what you will take when you transfer to the Norman campus 2 years later. Right? That is one of our biggest goals. So that's kind of, if you will, one of the activities that will come out of that. Then the other is to ensure a sense of belonging. Just like was already discussed this morning, we know that they are not gaining that just by going to class. We know that every transfer student cannot go to the mixer tonight. We know that. So we're doing, if you will, the larger scale staffing, activities, and then we're going to start adding to that, right? Do we need to have things throughout the day for transfer students? We don't have a physical location where they can meet up, right? These are conversations, and I'll tell you one of the ways that we're going to learn these ideas through student voice here in just a little bit. So through the strategic plan, We have said as an institution, we see you, we're going to be here for you in better ways in the years to come, right? We're going to make this more seamless. So in my position, as I've mentioned in a couple of different ways, I'm basically a liaison. Do I need to go to the PACA transfer community, sit down with them, go over those 3 pages of great ideas they've had and said, hey, are we making this happen? What else could we do next if you prioritized? Am I going to admissions and saying, what's it like when you're on the road right now? Right? What is it that you don't have? What else could we add to that? So I'm the internal liaison, but I am also the external liaison. So what I want to pause and say here is, if you can't get somebody to call you back from OU for your student, I want you to email and call me. I will find who that is, I will connect them, or I will be that person for you and your student. We are very serious about this. We are tired of hearing of dropped calls. We are tired of hearing of missed emails. I personally work this way too, okay? So if you have to nudge me 3 days later and be like, you said you were going to respond to my email, do it, okay? I really try to be as prompt as possible. So when I assumed this role on behalf of all my colleagues in student affairs this summer, I said, okay, what are we going to do? It's one thing for me to go to meetings, but we can get on some things. We know there are things that need to be done. So I'm going to go through this list with you of what we intend to do before the end of this academic year. So the first thing I did is I went old school. Now you might be thinking, they don't read their emails. No, some of them don't. I know that. But guess what? Some of them do. When I happen to be in our PACs, our College of Professional and Continuing Studies, our students are all over the globe. And I was like, they just need to hear from somebody on a weekly basis. That's the genesis. They see my name, and they see 3 nudges each week, right? So it started 2 weeks before school started with just a big, grand welcome. Hey, if you didn't hear about Camp Crimson, you might want to consider doing it. If you didn't hear about this great book called The Guide, you might want to look at it. It has the links embedded in it, and it always has how to find me. I love when I get a response. So last week being the 8th week, right? At the beginning of it, I just started with, how are you? How are classes? Are you surprised by your midterms? I had 3 or 4 students write me the kindest notes back. You know, I'm actually doing okay, but I am struggling and so. I really appreciate that you asked me, right? So we try to personalize it with the student's preferred name, do those 3 nudges, and then they know they're going to get a response or I'm going to connect them back. At the beginning of the year, one student told me, and it was just a real reminder to me of campus size. And it was a couple days after I'd sent the email, and she emails and says, I don't know how to work the bus system. I was like, okay, I have actually some background in this, so let me help you. Connected her over with Susan Coldwater over in our parking and transit office. Susan met with her, took her on a bus ride. Right? We will do those things even at this big campus. She is now one of our biggest advocates for CART. So we will make those connections. We have a long-standing student retention group, but we've shifted around who sits on it. So what we did was, it was kind of, if you will, our higher administrators for a long time, just looking at student patterns and what was going on. Now we've put folks like myself who are doing those coordinating roles, who, when we finish the conversation after a couple hours, can say, all right, I'm calling Connie, you're calling Riley, you're calling Tim, right? They're going to have somebody that reaches out to them. And the students who come to our attention in the student retention group are those who have submitted to cancel their enrollment, those who we have received notice from somebody on campus of, we can't find them, or we're really concerned, and then a group of students that we're seeing some financial need, right? So we are pulling data through our money coaches and financial aid to see where there is some unmet need for students and comparing it to bursar balances and saying, how do we use this money that we have? Because any of you who've sat in scholarship committees know that half the time you don't get enough applicants, or you're looking for more, or another pot of money came to you. So that's kind of the group that's on it. We've got our Associate Provost of Student Success. We've got myself, our Assistant Dean of University College, so that's our entry college right? Mostly first-year students or those students who have not declared a major. From there, we have senior advising leaderships, Center for Student Advancement, which is where our students are kind of off track. We're trying to help you get back on track, taking a course, money coach, and some of our graduation and persistence staff. So that's the group that makes it up. Then we have a pathway template. Here's what I want to say. This pathway template is not one that is required to be used. But what we hope is it gives all of our departments across campus a way to organize classes, right? So on the back of University of Oklahoma degree sheets is a suggested, and some of you are like, yep, I've seen it. I've tried to figure out the transfer equivalencies and how this works for my institution. But now it should be literally, hello, here is OU, here is your institution, or vice versa, depending where they're at. Now, putting this all down on paper, how many of you in the room are academic advisors? Okay, I just want to apologize to you in advance because you know what's going to come. When we make the call or your faculty start to reach out to us, you're going to be brought into those meetings. And that's one thing, but you're probably going to be the one typing out this form. I do recognize it, but you are the experts. You really understand those nuances between the institutions, so thank you. Know that I'm here to help you type or help you review, whatever that might be. So once it's on paper, faculty have agreed to it, there are signatures that are attached to it. So we are trying to start thinking forward as an advising community that for our students in the future, we're going to have these established degree sheets, or as I tell my students in class, this is your contract. This is your contract with the institution to get that piece of paper, but we're also going to have that pathway. So every year we recognize we will be, for each calendar year, publishing both and making sure that they are set up. So where are we in this process at OU? Like, it all sounds great, but where are we? Well, thank you, state legislature. I know, a rare thing. But thank you for the money for Inspire to Teach, right? And so our College of Education jumped out there. Dr. Sherry Cox and her team with Davita and others, I mean, they spent hours beyond just getting ready for the school year. And we have signed 18 pathways with the Oklahoma City Community College. Well, we'll be coming, but we just started up the road, okay? So sometimes we will have those wonderful things befall us, and we want to benefit all of our students. We do foresee engineering coming next, along with business, and then chosen majors within arts and science, biology, chemistry, so on and so forth. So if you're like, yep, that's me or my best friend, I better text him, right? That's where we're going to be coming. But this is somewhat at the direction of faculty. So to get these pathways completed, it is going to take one of those huge collaborative efforts between the faculty, the advisors, and the respective administration. I understand that, but if I can help to navigate that in any way, clarify anything, that's part of that liaison role that I've mentioned to you. So we've already got a template that we can work through, and we're excited about that. You see also on the left that we have MOU partnerships. So this memorandum of understanding is saying with each of these 5 that are listed and a couple more to come, we have made an understanding between how will we share student data so we can work on reverse transfer. How will we make sure that our institutions are sharing these pathways? It is all the logistics between the 2 institutions on the MOUs. We hope to have all of these types of documents posted in early spring. We're collecting them across campus as we speak. So the next thing is this individualized support. I don't think this will surprise you with everything that I've said at this point. I am this person. If you don't, again, know where to send a student, or they might need some extra assistance, I am that person. There is someone to go to at OU. That is my biggest thing if you take nothing else away today. So one of the things that I have the pleasure of serving is in our academic life coaching program that came up through our academic advising community. So we are actually trained over the course of a semester to sit down with students and essentially ask them questions. So if you're familiar with life coaching, the whole premise is based on you have the answers. Let me draw out what you really want to work on. Is it talking to your parents about, I know you want me to be a doctor, but I want to be a science teacher. I'll help you get there, right? Is it that something has befallen you And you really need to talk through that, and we might also need to get you set up with counseling services. So academic life coaching is a part of our greater campus-wide resources, but I serve in that capacity. And I have about 5 students that I work with right now, all the way from transfer students, first-year students, and PhD students. So again, I want to make sure students have what they need. One of the things I had the pleasure to set up in August was an actual advisory board. So Mark Morvant, who's our Associate Provost of Student Success, he is technically the chair of that board. We meet monthly. But again, I'm a point of contact for this group. So what we did was we went to our academic advising community because I appreciate the connections that are made at the admissions, but I want to find the students' stories out there who aren't going to make it to me through admissions. I want it through the relationships that are created every semester by meeting with your advisor, or it could have been a professor, right? So we sent out the call for nominations to advisors and then to all of our chairs across campus. I could not have asked for a more ideal first group. So we have 12 students on our board. They represent 7 of our 13 degree-granting colleges. They are traditional. I went to TCC for 1 year. Sorry, we didn't get them finished yet, but we'll work on that. Get that reverse transfer, right? To I'm the mother who decided if I was going to tell my child to go to college, I better get it done too, right? So our provost, Mark, is really getting to see this spectrum of students. Now, the other thing in regards to diversity, I could not have asked for more diverse, from race to family history to socioeconomic class. But those of you who've worked with students and you know trends, I couldn't have scripted this better. We sat down with Mark in the big office, the president's building, just last week. I gave them directions 3 or 4 times. Here's my cell phone number. Made sure I sent out a reminder that morning. Oh, they all came, right? But it took them extra time to find the building, which I think was a great reminder to him about they're not onboarding at the same rate that a traditional student, because we had just had the board for the traditional direct from high school the week before. They were all 10 minutes early right there. No, mom's running in after picking up daughter at Norman High School to take her to her OU class, right? Here's a friend who's like, oh, I've got to go grab so-and-so. They're confused. They thought it was at the Union because they both just transferred in this first semester. So, right, getting to actually sit and hear from the students, they told Mark was they want to make sure that all their classes count, and where do they find an internship? It was a totally different conversation than the week before. Now, they did talk an extensive amount about finding community and how they're working on that, but the really 2 things that they talked at length about were credits, being that direct credit, like we were kind of clarifying earlier. Does it count a course for a course, right? And that internship. So we're really excited to see where this board takes us and informs us about what we think we're doing good and what we've forgotten or not even realized we need to do. Then we have lifted National Transfer Student Week on our campus. What I mean by that is we weren't doing anything. We weren't. Who was going to own it? What was it going to look like? Well, who knows? Let's just get some posters out there and make sure. Now, we're doing tabling at the Union. We're doing the mixer tonight. We have made sure every transfer student group, every transfer student, I don't care if you transferred in 3 semesters ago, got that old school email, they know it's happening, and the provost sent out a memo to all faculty and said, this is our transfer community. This is who they are. Gave different breakdowns in regards to percentage. If you were to guess percentage-wise of our undergraduate Norman campus population, where do you think our transfer students are? If you just gave me a percentage of the 100, how many do you think are transfer students of our undergrad population? I'm not a math person, if you can tell by the way I asked that. 48? 30? 18%. So it might seem low, but I suspect that it shocked some of our faculty, right? 18% of our undergraduate student body transferred into OU. 42% represent a minoritized community, right? That is different. That is double what our overall traditional age students. So we want them to know. The other thing that we did was that we gave them a bullet list of things to consider doing. Would you put up a slide that we created for you in class? Our Canvas, right? Our learning systems. Put this on the website, right? For the week. Our social media is promoting it. So what our hope is, after this fall, people know it happens. People are expecting it to happen, and any of you who've worked with student groups know we're going to find a couple of gyms this year who are ready to take it to the next level, right? And they're going to do some even more great activities and even better ideas than we've even thought to bring those students together. So we will be practicing this annually. One of the things we're talking about, maybe some of you guys can give me ideas at lunch, is what do we do for our spring transfers? We are aware of that. We are. We do not have any orientation planned at this time, but guess what meetings start up in November? Hello, colleagues, let's sit down and talk about spring. What can we at least do to make sure that they know that we see them? Now, this is the biggest thing that I am so excited to share with you. I mentioned earlier we do not have a physical location for transfer students to meet up on our Norman campus, but we now have a virtual transfer center. So if you go to ou.edu transfer success, does not matter where you're at in the transfer process, you will find resources for you. So the homepage introduces it. Then as you can see, I know I've only given you half, but if you will imagine across the nav bar, there is a future transfers, admitted transfers, and current transfers. Those are all tailored to the needs of where a student is in that process. This is more or less kind of a front curtain. Any of you who've worked in web design or kind of have played around on enough websites, when you go to admitted students, you're going to see things in the way of, where would I get my parking permit? How do I make an advising appointment? Versus, hey, you might be a future student, where's the admissions link? So the idea is they can hit quick links and get there. The other piece, do you see that it says partner institutions up here? No more search.ou.edu for you. That is what I'm hopeful of. But I do need your feedback. So as you play around, I would love you to send me, hey, I didn't see this, or have you thought about maybe posting it in this way? Right? Let me know that, and we will work on that. But when you click partner institutions, what you all will see is a link to admissions, a link to our degree sheets, a link to our transfer page, and a link to FAQs. We'll also outline the reverse transfer process for you. Now, eventually it will have the pathways, right? Right now we're staying with our degree sheets. But when you go to, if you're not familiar with this, our actual equivalencies page, OU just signed a contract with Transferology. So not only do we have the state system to pull from and then the OU system, but now you can work within Transferology. What I like about that is, yes, a student has to do a lot of plugging and chugging. We are aware of that. But once that's done, they receive an email, and it's literally course by course. Here's the direct, here are the non-direct. If I could have any dream, like if Mark gave me a wand and said, what do you want to make happen in 22, 23, I would be like, I would like a 10-member transfer equivalency team. Please, like 10 people. I want 10 people, and they would all be assigned to different schools, and you'd call them up, and we would take those transcripts that aren't having a direct equivalency, and we would find that out for you, because we do recognize the burden is still on the student right now to get those courses transferred if we don't have a direct equivalency. 23, 24, get ready. Okay, that's really where we hope. I don't know if it'll be through staffing or through more resources, but I want to make sure you know that we're cognizant of that, and we hope with Transferology it gives one more way to show those changes. So I know we will all receive these, but I am very serious about emails, phone calls. I will get back with you. You guys know what works from your side and what isn't working, and I probably don't see half of that. So I want to understand that, have conversations. I'll come to your institution, whatever you think would be most helpful so that we can talk through those things. Oh, I'm quite proud of myself. 23 seconds left. I want to make sure there's some questions that get answered. What can I tell you more about when it comes to our efforts to be transfer champions at OU?
More about like the academic life coaching. I thought that was super interesting. You said you guys
Oh, sure. So with our academic life coaching program, we've actually had a contract, and John Williams has come in for the last 5 years. You have to be admitted into the program, right? You apply for consideration. It's a class of about 15. It's 16 weeks where you meet for about 3 hours, practice the skill, right? And then you start to work with students at the end of that. Yeah, I'd be happy to share more information about that. Yeah. Other questions? Would you like to share anything that's going on at your institution or a struggle that you've had in connecting with us? I'm open to that too. We have a ways to go, right? In making this smoother for our students. There's no doubt about it. And every student is individualized in the transfer space, so that makes it even more complicated. But again, I'm here. I don't think it ever hurts to have a little bit more time and a break, right? My understanding, our restrooms, if you've not already been told this, are outside to the left, maybe at the far end as well. So thank you for letting me speak to you today, and I'm here if you have any individual questions.